Zone. Hannah Keane back amongst the goals as Western take down the ladder leaders. Spoil shared in Melbourne as a Sydney youngster stars again. And Wanderers goal-scoring record breaker Sophie Harding joins us in the studio. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone. I'm your host, Alicia Ferguson. It's great to have your company so we can chat all things Liberty A-League. And alongside me tonight, A-League's commentator, Pellizzeri.
Great to see you, Ish.
Yeah, great to see you too, Teo. Former Matilda, Cannuli.
I'd rather Nevo, but hello, Ish.
Knew it was going to be a stitch-up. And obviously Wanderers star forward, Sophie Harding. Sophie, great to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
No, great. Look, you've had a great season so far. 8 goals. What's going right for you?
Oh, yeah, it's good. I think it's the first season I've got some solid goals, which is good. But, yeah, I think that the team's been playing really well and I've been getting a lot of good service, so that's definitely played a part in it. But, yeah, it's good.
I mean, I think Nils has got a bone to pick with you, though.
I sure do. You're the second person now to break my record at the Western Sydney Wanderers. How does that feel?
It feels pretty good. You had less games to play, so...
Oh, thanks. You make me feel good there.
Well, look, we'll go to your game. Unfortunately, the Raw beat your 4-game winning streak. But you did have them pinned in your own half for the first 15 or 20 minutes, Sophie. But what went wrong from there? Yeah,
look, it's a unfortunate score to reflect on, but, you know, I think Raw had a very good game. It was a bit of back and forth. Like you said, we started both halves pretty well, but I think we lost our heads a little bit at some points of the game and, yeah, paid price.
Nils, that ball from Tamiki Allop into Kai Stevenson, she had a great game as well and just looked a lot settled and was really influential for the Raw.
She sure was, and you can see the qualities in Tamiki Allop. She's a quality footballer and she just recognised that, especially in transition, the Western Sydney Wanderers are trying to exploit the Wanderers' back three, and in that transition moment, the way she switches the ball of play and just catches the Wanderers out, it's something that they could see that the Brisbane Raw had worked on during the week.
And Sophie, you've got so much pace going forward up there, but a bit of a concern with that exploitation of that back three.
Yeah, I think it's always a risk if you play 3 at the back, if you don't have super pacey players. But, you know, the last 4 games, I think we conceded 1 goal and we won 4 games. So, you know, it's definitely something we have to be aware of going forward. But I think, yeah, I back us in most ways.
You're battling for the top 6 and there's a bit of expectation attached to your team now. So when it's going wrong in a game like that, or maybe a month ago, the 1-0 loss at home to Adelaide, what are you learning from these defeats and what's happening out there on the pitch with the leaders of the team trying to make sure that it doesn't turn into a negative spiral?
Yeah, I think, like, as a team, we obviously have gone through a lot of hardships in the past. We've gone through a lot of times where we weren't winning and we weren't getting results. So that's brought us together quite well. I think that it's good for us not to get ahead of ourselves and if things do start to go wrong in games, that we stay composed.
But Sophie, great build-up play, back to goal for that Holly Casper's goal as well. How has your game changed? Because you were all over the park. You were from side to side, you were coming off, dropping off, but this was from fantastic build-up play.
Yeah, I think this formation that we play gives me a bit more freedom to sort of float in different areas of the park. I'm not really pinned back in my own half defending too much. I'm able to, like, make more forward runs and come to the ball and add different aspects to my game and involve other players, which is good.
Look, you've got the pace. Now you've got the clinical finishes of it. What are you actually thinking when you start getting the ball at your feet and standing players up?
Yeah, I think my natural instinct as a player has always been to take people on. But, yeah, now I think I'm adding other elements to my game, involving other players, which is good. But, yeah, I'm sort of just backing myself, being confident, which is good.
Yeah, look, this was a fantastic run, Sophie. You were a little bit frustrated, obviously. Strikers want the ball at their feet. They wanted to have the opportunity to score. You didn't quite get that. Malia Morris, unfortunately, hit the crossbar.
Yeah, it would have been nice to finish off with a goal after that run. But, yeah, like you said, everyone wants to score. And if that goal goes in, and we're all celebrating, so can't read too much into it.
It'd be remiss of us not to ask about the coaching situation. 10 days before the season, Robbie Hooker comes in. We understand that the playing group was totally shocked and didn't know it was about to happen when it did. But there's been some real building blocks of Robbie putting his stamp on the group. And now he's got a new contract for another couple of years. So talk to us about how that has evolved over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think at the start we were all a bit, like, uneasy and confused, and it all did happen as quite a shock. But the more we've got to know Robbie, not only as a coach but as a person, I think we all really trust in him and his processes and the way he wants to play, and I think he's playing to our strengths, which we're all happy with.
Nils, what does it say that a coach who was out for 10 years can still come back and communicate with Gen Ys and Gen Zs, because so often when coaches leave coaching, it's because of the generation gap, and yet Robbie Hooker seems to have tapped into, you know, players that, like Sophie, have born between 1999 and 2005.
Absolutely. It wouldn't have been easy for Hooks to come in, but he's got a great mentor there in Tom Samani that's been around the game for so many years and knows this league inside and out. And I think having Tommy there would have been a massive boost to get Robbie over the line. And I think both of them will be working well together, knowing that, you know, he was the assistant to Tom Samani in the Matildas when Ish and I were playing back in the day, which was a long time ago.
Yeah, and look, having those two as the coaching partnership, I think it was the happiest I've ever been in the Matildas. We had, you know, they worked so well together, and you said Tommy's given you some additional work as well at the ripe old age of however he is, limping around the pitch as well. How's he helping you out?
Yeah, they're both very human. They're very good people. They have a laugh, which is good. I think that's why the girls love them. But yeah, Tommy's still really involved in training, especially with the strikers, which is good. And yeah, I really appreciate all his feedback.
It would be remiss of us not to talk not just about your goals, but about you, because you didn't actually make your A-League Women's debut until you were 21, and now you're having your breakout season at age 24. And Wanderers are a great example with debuting a couple of 14-year-olds this season, and we get introduced to most players in this league between the age of 16 and 18. So why is it that we didn't know about Sophie Harding in this National League until age 21?
Yeah, I would say when I was a bit younger, I relied on my athleticism quite a lot. I knew I was quite fast, but as the game got more technical and it got a lot harder level, I might have struggled a little bit in some aspects. But as I've played under some really good coaches and I've worked hard on my technical side of things and been able to add other elements to my game, it's definitely helped.
Are you mindful that you are actually a role model for players who may not have made it into elite training squads or into the A-League Women's as a teenager, but you can still not just make the league, but be a top player contending for the Golden Boot, even if you have to wait until your 20s to make your debut?
Yeah, for sure. I don't like that whole thing about, you know, if you're not in when you're young, you're not going to get in, because there's definitely been times where I felt like that when I was a bit younger, if you weren't in the young Matildas mix or whatever. But, you know, it's never too late for players, and some people do get better as they get older. So I think that they should stay optimistic all the time.
Well, we'll move on to the F3 Derby, where they play for such an illustrious trophy. So it was a mid-table clash. Only 1 point between these two teams. Nils, what a great signing Ergamal's been. That first goal, great ball in from Lola Badawia. But she's been a standout player this season, hasn't she?
She's been fantastic, especially in front of goal. She's been so prolific, and this ball in here from Lola Badawia is just absolutely class, the way she shapes that ball in behind Pryor there, and Ergamal, fantastic run to be able to bomb forward into the box, and the way she takes this is just so cool and collected, and that's why she's been so great for the Central Coast Mariners this season.
But Newcastle had plenty of chances, Teo.
Particularly in the first half, and due to injury with Melina Reyes and Serena Bolden arriving in season, we haven't actually seen the two of them playing on the pitch at the same time. And I feel as though, you know, Lauren Allen on one wing, Lara Gooch cutting into the middle from the other wing, there were chances for Newcastle in this game, and they will walk away wondering how they didn't score, never mind how they lost this game 2-0, because the building blocks are definitely there for them to get better returns on the amount of creativity that they had in the game.
But then second goal, Paige Hayward touch, we were having a bit of a question whether it was offside, Nils.
We sure were. We were looking at it back and forth, but from our angle we couldn't really tell. But I did think it might have been offside, but nonetheless, it was a great ball in behind there for Paige Hayward, and she takes this touch really, really well and gets around the keeper and slots it away and, you know, secures the 3 points for Central Coast Mariners, which we've got to give credit to Emily Husband and her team. You could see even at 1-0 up how disciplined they were, even in their defensive structure.
But look, the other big news from this game, finally we saw the return of Matilda Kaya-Simon. She's been out for 480 days. Sophie, great to see one of the greats back of the A-League.
Yeah, awesome to see her back. She's a very good player, and I remember watching her when I was really young, 15, 16, been someone I looked up to. So to see I'm now playing in the league with her, it's pretty cool.
Just crucial for her to stay fit, Teo, though.
Yeah.
Stay fit and healthy.
And the Mariners, I mean, they were naming Kaya in their extended squad every week. They have been that close to finally getting her back on the bench, finally getting her back on the pitch. And who knows, having lost Taryn King for the season as their captain with an ACL, they're going to need veterans and leadership in order to steer them to the finish line and potentially challenge for the top six. I mean, they're fifth now, and I would think that they'd be very confident about staying there.
Yeah, great to see her back. Well, we'll move on to Wellington, Canberra, where Wellington finally broke their 4-game losing streak against bottom-of-the-ladder Canberra. Nils, Mariana Speckmaier, she's been one of my favourite signings, one of my favourite players of this season for the Knicks. 2 goals in this game, 1 in each half. What do you make of it?
She's been fantastic this season. She's had a real eye for goal. When she gets in front of the goal, she's just always in the right place at the right time. But here, this great ball in behind, outside of the foot by Isabel Cox and Speckmaier, just that forward run, that's where she's dangerous. She gets in behind defences and she just makes those run for a little bit deeper. And then slots this away, just so precise. And you can see how excited the Wellington Phoenix players are there after that. And you can see here this cross as well. She's looking deep. She's in behind there. She gets up in the header and puts the ball in the back of the net.
Surely Paul Temple will be happy with that. He may not be happy with this Riley Foster red card. The goalkeeper getting sent off for a cheeky elbow. Teo?
Yeah, Paul Temple was really strong in his post-match comments. He said that the Wellington Phoenix will be appealing Riley Foster's red card, so they'll try and get that overturned. He also questioned why top women's referees are refereeing A-League men's games instead of doing the A-League women's. And he also questioned why a referee was on debut in round 14 of the season. This is Molly Godsell, who, congratulations to her, got her first A-League women's central appointment. She'd been 4th official a couple of times before today. But when we look at this elbow here, Catherine Cannuli, you're our expert. Is that a red card offence?
Definitely not. And that is just, honestly, it's so heartbreaking for Riley Foster, because as a goalkeeper, as any player, to get sent off for something that really didn't mean anything, it's just, yeah, it's devastating. And it's going to be a tough one to take for the Wellington Phoenix. And like Paul Temple said, they will be appealing the red card.
Sophie, you've been appealing for a few cards. Tell me you're fast without telling me you're fast. A bit of frustration, particularly in your game against the Roar as well.
Yeah, I do think that there's a few calls not being called this year by the refs. I think like any shirt pull should be called. I mean, even if I play on and keep going, should go back for a card, I think.
I'm not going to lie, Soph, but if I'm defending you, I do not want to chase you, so I am definitely pulling your shirt without the referee seeing.
That's what I tend to hear.
Absolutely no chance anyone's catching you, Soph. Right, well, we had Annalie Longo had this to say about that Wellington Phoenix game.
Brianna Edwards comes off the bench, saves a penalty. It's a bit of a fairy tale for her, day after her 21st birthday.
Exactly, celebrate in style, I say. Yeah, she was class, she came on, did the job for us, and yeah, important kind of step to those 3 points. So fantastic for her, and nice to have her kind of have her moment, and a big happy birthday to her.
Nils, just touching on Canberra though. They've scored the 2nd highest amount of goals and they're now bottom of the table. What is going on?
Every week when I look at this table and I see Canberra at the bottom with Milivojevic and Heyman at the top of the goal standings, it's just unbelievable to see where Canberra are actually sitting at the moment. And it's devastating for them, because they've been so great at times, but they've also been so poor defensively. It's just a really tough one to take for Canberra United.
And Sophie, you haven't played them yet because the game against them got postponed. So you've got them twice coming up in the run home. What are your you haven't played them yet, so don't give them any motivation. But what are your perceptions of Canberra? They're such a free-scoring team, and they've got the 2 players that are one ahead of you in the Golden Boot race.
Yeah, I mean, when they're on. It's clear to see, but I don't know if they've overly been consistent. But yeah, it'd be interesting to verse them back-to-back pretty quickly. Yeah, hopefully can get the win.
I tend to play a bit of a high line. You might be in there with plenty of pace in behind. Look, we'll move on to Melbourne victory. Sydney, the Big Blue 1-1 draw. It had some big talking points. Penalties not given, penalties given. Teo, but one of the big talking points as well, 17-year-old Maddie Casper's goal.
Yeah, another goal in consecutive games, having a sensational start to her A-League women's career. And the sister, of course, of one of your teammates, Sophie Holly Caspers, at the Western Sydney Wanderers. Both sisters have scored for 2 different clubs in consecutive weekends, one following the other. It seems as though the sibling rivalry is actually pushing them to the next level. We'll come back to that because we saw their the penalty show. But we'll get to the penalty. Let's stick with Casper, shall we? What a great start to her career. I mean, is it a little bit surprising that the 2 sisters aren't at the same club, or is it actually working out better for them that one's pushing the other from afar?
Yeah, it's funny. Western Sydney, Sydney. I know Holly's very proud of her little sister. She was watching her get a goal right before we kicked off, which was really sweet. But yeah, I'm assuming they would be quite competitive with each other, given that they're rivals on paper, but nah, good to see.
It's going to make the Sydney Derby interesting, isn't it, Knowles?
I want to see what the parents are wearing at the Sydney Derby. They're going to do the half-half jersey like some parents do, but nonetheless, both Caspers are great talents, but especially Maddie's someone that, you know, a lot of people have spoken about. She came through playing in the boys NPL, and she's been a name that's been spoken about over the last few years. And to see Sydney FC secure her on a long-term contract, it's just great not only for her but for the future of women's football.
Nils, I want to ask you about that victory penalty. So Mackenzie Weiner collided with Jada Wyman. Referee Isabella Blais consulted her assistant referee, but it was a contentious decision. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was. I just think, to be honest, it was a bit of a 50-50 challenge there. Jada's come out, and I think Weiner, they both come in together, and it's just a bit of, honestly, it's a bit of a touchy one from the angle that we see, but Jada does get her hands to it at first point.
VAR, that's what we need.
Victory needed this, though. They didn't have this is in the 21st minute. They didn't have another shot on target until the 90th minute, and that was just a little bobbler that bounced down to Jada Wyman to pick up. It wasn't like a proper dangerous shot. At Knowles, I was commentating this game. My observations were that the coaches were very conservative, didn't make subs until late, and really left the handbrake on. Why do you think these two teams, that we've seen face off in grand finals a few times over the journey and last year in the preliminary final, why didn't they actually go for it and take a few risks to try and win the game?
It was actually really disappointing to see two quality teams in Victory and Sydney FC play the way that they did. It was just a bit of the momentum of the game. But both of these teams have got such quality, especially up front, in the midfield. The whole team, to be able to sit back, why did they not take it on the front foot a little bit more? But I think personally it's about players on the pitch taking initiative and really pushing to go forward. It looked like both teams were just happy to play out a draw.
Bit of lethargy as well. It just seemed like it was played at quite a slow pace.
Yeah, I mean, Sydney hit the woodwork in the final minute with Zara Kruger nearly popping up for the winner, but Sydney had the better of the chances. Melbourne Victory, they got a lot of possession to the edge of the penalty area, but it's almost like they weren't aware that they weren't creating the chances, they weren't shooting, and, you know, we didn't see them try from distance. You know, Sydney FC's defence was organised enough, but Knowles, I don't know, it's left me wanting more in the sense that next time they play against each other, hopefully it's in a knockout final, where they'll know that the consequences of not leaving it all out on the pitch will be far greater than a regulation home and away game.
Well, let's hope so, because both teams have got absolutely plenty of quality across the whole pitch, and we know that Sydney FC had 23 shots during the whole game and only 9 of them were on target. But I think Sydney FC especially, sometimes they do depend a lot on Courtney Vine to create a lot more and get forward. What happens now when people actually find players out, like Sophie, you'd probably be feeling this as well, as you start to get a bit of confidence and teams are finding you out, you get a little bit more marked out of the game, and you've got to find other avenues to build up and score goals.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, that gives opportunities for other players to step up and get involved, and I think that might need to happen for some of the Sydney players. But, yeah, it's when you're scoring, it's good, but it's just as important to be getting around assists and being involved in other ways.
Well, Melbourne City, league leaders, 7 points clear, still can't get their first win over Western United. But we saw the return of Hannah Keane. She returned after having a bit of a hamstring issue for a couple of weeks. She's a quality player, Teo.
Western United did it again. The contrast in styles between these two teams is always apparent. However, this is the first time it was Cath Smith in charge. Mark Torcaso had been there for the previous 3 meetings against Melbourne City. Knowles, how do Western United keep doing this?
It's Melbourne City's bogey team, but again, we've spoken this time and time again. Western United, it's a lot about pride. There's a lot of Melbourne-born players, and again, we've spoken about them not getting opportunities at the Cities and at the Victories, and they really step up when it's needed. And Western United have been absolute quality, and we've got to, you know, put credit on Chloe Lagazo and obviously Cath Smith coming in. They're getting a little bit of consistency now, but they were definitely the better team in this game.
Nils, Cath Smith's demeanour in the dugout seems quite calm compared to potentially last year or when she was at the Wanderers. Give us some insight into the pressure and what it's like being on the sideline when things are going wrong and you're trying to change things to make them go right.
100%. When you are trying every single thing and you're not getting results and the pressure's building, you're on TV, you're not getting the wins that you want, and the amount of time and effort that you put in. And as a player, you come to training, you go home. As a coach, you're there before the players, you leave after the players, and your mind never turns off. And I think for Cath, even though it was a hard thing for her to go through as a coach, and it's always difficult, but I also think there's a lot of positives for her, and it gave her a lot of time to reflect on her journey and what she went through as her first time as a head coach. And she's probably reflected on that and taken all that opportunity and all that experience that she had at the Wanderers into Western United and just started on a different foot. And I think, the girls have really taken to her. I've spoken to a lot of the girls in and around the group, and they're absolutely loving Cath as their coach.
Yeah, well, you learn. As you say, you have to learn. You would go on that journey, don't you? Taya, it's not like City didn't have or create the chances, though.
No, and, well, they always do. And we had Rebecca Stott here on Dub Zone last week. City, they focus on themselves. They love the idea of their plan A, their style, and what they will work on. But if you don't have your shooting boots on, it may not work out. And Sophie, you've already played them home and away this season. Down in Melbourne, it was 4-3. Holly Mack was running right. But then you kept a clean sheet against them in Sydney. So what did you learn about playing Melbourne City in your 2 experiences against them?
Yeah, like you said, I think they have a very specific style of play that they want to play, and it doesn't matter who they're playing against, they won't cater for them, which it can be sometimes good when you are playing them because you kind of know what you're going to get. So I think that we came out a certain way with a certain plan the second time, and we were able to come off with the win.
It was an amazing contrast. I mean, 4-3 in Melbourne, but a 1-0 win for Wanderers in Sydney. So it just goes to show that, with the second time around, maybe Melbourne City will find that other teams have got a way to combat their very possession-heavy, dominant, suffocating style.
Yeah, well, Adelaide next up, off the bottom of the table, finally, for the first time this season with a 2-1 win over Perth Glory. Teo, you covered this game. What's going on with Perth?
What is going on with Perth? I mean, credit to Adelaide, only their 3rd win of the season, and relief for them. 2 of their 3 wins have been coming from behind, which does show that there is a bit of belief in character in the group on their day. Here's the equaliser for Izzy Hodgson, who is now playing as a permanent centre forward, having been moved out of right back. And I've got to say, Adrian Stenter, it's been a good move because Zoe Toland had a really strong game at right back as well, and Izzy up forward scored the goal as captain. So, yeah, great finish. Now, this was unfortunately a goalkeeping error from Morgan Aquino to decide it. So, Knowles, let's talk. We've praised Adelaide. Let's talk about what's going wrong with Perth, because they invited Adelaide on in this game. They really struggled to possess the ball high up the pitch. And Adelaide had a volume of chances, which was the product of the territorial battle being massively skewed in Adelaide's favour. And an example that I pulled out with the naked eye was that it seemed as though Grace Jarley was doing nice things on the ball, but look at this pitch map here. That is the pitch map of a right wing back, not of someone who's scoring you goals. She didn't have a touch inside the attacking penalty area and barely had a touch inside the attacking third. Millie Farrow also dragged deep into defensive midfield just to try and get Perth out of defence. OK, this is why you're the coach and I'm the commentator. I've given you all the problems. What can Perth do as a solution?
I think a lot of the issues that Perth is having is, trying to play through that middle third and the midfield's not really creating opportunities to get into that front third as well. And that's probably why Jarley and Farrow are coming deeper to try and get the ball, because they're not getting the service. And it just comes down to sometimes the style of play that coaches want to play and what players you actually got. Sometimes if you've got players like Farrow and Jarley that, really want the ball in behind and have got that speed, sometimes, yes, we want to play great football, we want to play out from the back, we want to go through the midfields, but sometimes you just need to be a little bit more direct. And to be honest, things haven't been really working for Perth Glory. They started better, but now slowly they're making their way further down the ladder. We've
been critical of the goals drying up. They did score 1 in this game, Hannah Lowry with her 3rd of the season, and this was a really nicely worked move, but it's a full-back in Liz Anton, Sophia Sakalis, who was in the starting 11, and then Lowry with the volley in. And at that point, 1-0 reward for effort, but the attacks really dried up after this point. So Perth, this was supposed to be their get-right game. Now they're away to Sydney FC. So they've had Brisbane at home, they've had Adelaide away, they've played 2 of the bottom 3, and they've got 1 point out of those possible 6, and they're vulnerable. And there isn't really a tougher away game, maybe arguably Melbourne City away, but hey, they won that back in December. Sydney FC away is right up there.
it's going to be a tough game for them to be able to play Sydney FC away. We know what a struggle it is to be able to fly in and out of Perth every couple of weeks, and it is tough. And when you aren't getting the results and it's not working for you, what actually tends to happen as well, and I've seen a little bit of this in the Perth Glory team, is that you can start to see that there's starting to be a bit of a lack of cohesion within the players as well. We know Susan Fonsoncan started the season so well. She's actually seems like she's out of favour and she's been coming off the bench, to be honest. So things are definitely, I think, in a bit of a change there for Alex Aparkis, and a little bit of work for him to do over the next few weeks.
Well, we'll get on to the ladder. City still at the top. Sophie, what do you make of it? You got Adelaide away next week. They're finally off the bottom. You're sitting on 6th there.
Yeah, we need to make some revenge in Adelaide, I think. But it's definitely a very close table. Anything can happen at this point, really. It's moving.
I mean, you mentioned revenge. You had, sorry to bring up XG, you had 3 XG and couldn't score past them last time. Annalie Grove saved 4 one-on-ones. I mean, is this a chance to show what the team has learnt from then to now?
Yeah, for sure. I think you can have a game and everything can go right, but you can just not score, and that's unfortunate sometimes, but it's just football, and we'll be coming back and hoping to maybe finish some more of those chances.
You do have an extra game in hand and you can go past Central Coast Mariners. Are the team holding off to play that game against Canberra to see where you guys are sitting on the ladder come finishing off that game?
Yeah, it's good to have a game in hand, of course, given we've been in pretty good form. Obviously, we're not putting too much down to it. We're just kind of taking each game as it comes. But yeah, it's definitely in the back of our thoughts that we'll be climbing up the table if we do get the 3 points there.
Well, highlight of the week, Teo's top tips. So what we're doing, Sophie, we're actually blaming Teo for you not scoring last week. Teo, who are you stitching up this week?
Sorry, Sophie. I mean, when I gave the prediction last week, you still had the Sunday night game as well. And then yesterday, you had a couple of assists, though. I don't think it's terminal. All right. Courtney Vine's favourite opponent in the A-League Women's is Perth Glory. She scored 6 goals in 11 games against them. She has not scored as many against any other team. So just in time for the visit of Perth Glory this weekend, and maybe the visit of Courtney Vine to the Dub Zone set next weekend, Courtney Vine will score against Perth Glory. That is my top tip. Sorry, Courtney.
Yeah,
sorry.
Stitching up. Come on, who else? Anyone? That's it. That's it.
That's the top tip.
That's your top tip. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you company. Sophie, it's been a pleasure. You going to come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be back.
And Teo, always great to have your A-League Liberty insights. Nils, always great sharing a pitch with you. Second best thing, sharing a decks. So thanks very much. And honestly, we look forward next week. We're going to have the Matildas, one of the Matildas, penalty heroes from that shootout against France on the desk. Courtney Vine's here. Make sure you don't miss it.